Hey, welcome back to another episode of Parker's Pensies. This is a live 3K AMA. We made it to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I want to thank everyone for doing that. This is huge. I love it. I don't think anyone's watching right now, but that's okay because a lot of you sent in a lot of really great questions to answer. I think everyone's watching Gavin Ortland's live stream. I actually was just watching that. Super not great timing, Gavin. Thanks a lot, man. But this is Parker's Pensies live. I love thinking about cool stuff, so come think with me. If you have a question that you want me to answer, drop it in the live chat, and I should be able to see it here. People have sent in a bunch of them. I'll get through as many as I can. Coming off a little bit of a cold, so if I go into some crazy coughing fit, that's what's up. I'm not possessed or anything like that, but at least I don't think so. You can ask me about that, actually. All right, so let me jump in on some questions here. I'll start with David Fairbairn asked me, "What are my desert island books?" And this is so hard. If you've seen any of my other TikToks or anything, I got a ton of books. There are so many. My wife, I'm sure, is laughing at this because I bring 5 or 6 books with me like everywhere I go. I can't decide what to bring ever. If I really, really had really just a few books to bring, I would 100% bring Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. I love Philip K. Dick. For those who don't know, I have the cover of Bob Pepper's. Shoot, I can't get it. There we go. Bob Pepper did this awesome cover for Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in 1979 or 69. I should know that. I love it. I love the cover. I love thinking about it. It's just amazing. I love the book. So I would definitely bring PKD. That's the book behind Blade Runner, for those who don't know. I would also bring this gem, C.S. Lewis, Essay Collection and Other Short Pieces. Lewis is the man, and I love the way he thinks. I love the way he writes. This is so good. It's super rare, I think, now too. I paid a lot of money for this, and I think I bought another one too somewhere. I would bring that because I can read that all the time. I think there was maybe 2 years where I read this, like 2 consecutive years in a row. I love it. I love Lewis. He opens my mind to a ton of stuff. I think he's a good philosopher. I think he's a good public philosopher, public theologian, but he's just this creative guy and he thinks differently. And I want to be like him. I love that dude. I used to not like him because I was an idiot, but now I love him. So those are 2. I got to say the Bible. I'm a Christian and all you guys will destroy me if I don't, but I love the Bible. So I would love to bring the Bible as well. Have to bring that. And another desert island. Oh man. I said this with Joe Schmid yesterday when we were recording on books. I would probably bring Paul Gould's Beyond the Control of God. That's a weird one to bring. I love that book. That got me deep into metaphysics. And I think there's 6 views in there, and it's just these really good philosophers beating up on each other. And I love thinking about God and abstract objects, like propositions or even like triangles and properties and stuff like that. Like, do those exist in God's mind? What's up with that? I could read that book for the rest of my life for sure. Desert Island. So those are a couple. There's a bunch more. I wish that I could just spend the rest of the time talking about. I would bring all the books and my whole shopping cart on Amazon, which is like 10 grand worth of books. My wife is always afraid that I'm going to accidentally click checkout, but I don't think Amazon works like that. All right, I got some folks here in the live chat. That's cool. Let me pull from some of you guys who are watching now, and I'll go back to the old questions. Will you write a book? I can put these on the screen, I believe. There we go. Will you write a book? I'd like to. That's why I got into studying. I want to be someone who has books written. Like I wrote 120 page, 130 page master's thesis, which was under Kevin Van Hooser and John Feinberg, and they said it was really good. They said if I would have added like 40 pages, it could have been like a doctoral dissertation. Maybe they were just being generous to me. They're nice guys, but they're also not no nonsense. So I like that. I want to turn that into a book. It's on the authorial analogy for the God-world relation. I'm trying to use Kevin Van Hooser's model of the authorial analogy. That is that God is like an author and the world is like his theodrama. I'm trying to expand on that a little bit more, make it analytic and stuff. So I would love to turn that into a book. I got a bunch of ideas. I have stacks and stacks of thought journals, like over the years. I write down my thoughts because I was so sick of not being able to sleep. When I go to sleep, all these ideas come rushing into my head and I can't sleep. So I would just write them down and now I don't have to worry about them. So like, I mean, stacks, years and years. And who knows, maybe they're all crap ideas, right? But I'm hoping there's a book idea in one of them, but we'll see. You guys are writing a lot of questions here. Utilitarianism about war. Can war, I should add it. Okay. Utilitarianism about war. Can war be morally right or is war always wrong? I think those questions can probably come apart, right? Like, you don't have to be utilitarian about war. Like, maybe you could employ Kant's categorical imperative and say, like, yeah, there's a time when you must go to war and it's your duty, even if you don't want to, or even if the goods don't outweigh the bads and stuff, right? Like, maybe we don't have to do that. I think war sucks. I don't want to speak like too flippantly about war. War is hell. War is hell. War sucks. The fact that image bearers of God have to go to war sucks. I think there is just war. I think like going to war against Hitler is like the right thing to do, even though I still think it sucks. Like it's not the way things are supposed to be. So yeah, just with like the war going on right now, the different wars going on right now, I don't want to speak too flippantly and say like, of course, I do think that's the case. I could spend the rest of the time talking about that, but I want to acknowledge that like war is horrible, horrible, terrible, awful. It sucks. Let's see. Oh, this is good. Let's see this. If you got the chance to sit down with any philosopher or theologian at any time in history, who would it be and why? Man, this is a really good one. If I had like I might have to like do some stipulations here. Like if I had a translator, right? Like because I don't speak that many languages. I'd love to talk with Descartes. I love Descartes. I used to hate Descartes. And I just love that dude. I think the way he thinks is amazing. I would love that. I would love to talk with Pascal. He could correct me. I would let him change pensies to pensées. Those two. I guess I like Frenchmen. Holy cow. Fichte would be cool. Kant would be really, really fun. I would love to talk with Kant. He gets a bad rap. I love Kant. Augustine, like OG, amazing. We could talk about Christ, dude. Like Augustine would be huge. I would love to talk with Augustine. I'd love to talk with Barry Stroud. That dude is like the skeptics I don't know, bodyguard or something. That dude he's great. He's not a skeptic himself, but he was I think he was so intellectually honest in saying like, here's a bunch of skeptical arguments that we just kind of brushed over. And I don't think we should. I think we have to deal with these. So I would love to talk with Barry Stroud. Unfortunately, I think he passed away in 2019. He would be really fun to talk with. So there's a couple for you. Some of these are TLDR. It's kind of hard to get in on them. They're long. Make them shorter for me because it's hard to read them and not have like a silent thing. Oh, here we go. This is another good one. You probably already answered, but who inspired the stash? I went on a year of singleness in college, and that means like I wasn't going to pursue any women. I wasn't going to try and date anybody or anything like that. Just trying to get my life straight, trying to get on track with the Lord. And I thought, what's the best way to keep women away from me? Grow a mustache and grow a mullet. And so I did that. And I had actually like Fu Manchu, so it looks more like this. And I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And it definitely did keep the ladies away. But then I started growing this one, and I just thought, like, it's funny. It's a really funny thing to do. I went to Puerto Rico for a year after that, and they said to I'm a Christian missionary. I don't know if you guys know that, but I work on college campuses, and I talk with college students about God, about life's ultimate questions, about, a lot of the stuff that I cover here on the podcast. And one thing with working on college campus is to make yourself known, like be someone who people can point to. So if you have a crisis of faith, if you have a crisis of non-faith, if you want to talk to someone about God, if you want to talk to someone about simulation hypothesis, like who are you going to go to? Well, there's this crazy dude with a mustache on campus. I think he talks about God sometimes. Why don't you go talk with him? Oh, there he is right now. Like, so it was kind of a ploy to be like, hey, I'm going to make myself famous on campus here. And then it literally grew on me, but metaphorically grew on me as well. And my wife loves it and actually won't let me shave it now. And then my good buddy Jordan Singer made my logo, and it's like I've caricaturized myself. Now I have to have the mustache. So that's that. Awesome. This is great. Thanks. I didn't know Nietzsche was in the chat. That's a good one. Let's see. I've asked already, but I'll write it here. If you're reading the chat, 1, your justification for believing in God, and 2, most convincing argument / more interesting argument for God's existence. Thanks, Adrian. This guy's awesome. He's always commenting on my stuff. So, your justification for believing in God. I don't know how like in depth to go here. Like justification. Like, I have reasons for believing in God, and I have causes for believing in God. So they're different for me, right? So I think I'm a Calvinist. I believe that God caused me to believe in him. I think the Holy Spirit regenerated me. And I believe that God superintended the circumstances that would bring about my faith. But I do have reasons for still believing in God. Like I believe there's good arguments for God's existence. I also believe in the person relativity of proofs and arguments. I don't think there's one knockdown argument that will get everybody, because I think people have different like priors and different I keep forgetting this word. They have different worldviews. There's a better word for that, but so like why do I believe in God? I think I know God in the way that I know my mother and my father. Like I believe I know them in that. I believe I know God in that acquaintance way. Why do I think that? Well, because I pray a lot. I talk with God. I don't hear an auditory voice, like lest anyone come after me and want to throw me in the slammer or like put me on meds. I'm not hearing voices, but I do pray to God and I do see answered prayer. And it's just like I know God. I love Jesus. I know him on a personal level. And I see answered prayer all the time. And I think God answers my prayers. Like really, really random ones. You could call it observer bias. There's a better word for that too. I'm drawing a blank on a lot of words here, guys. You could call it bias. There's a better word too. And say like you're looking for this, right? Like confirmation bias. There we go. Now I'm smart. I'll give you an example. Like my wife and I used to live on campus at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and there was this great blue heron that we'd always scare. We'd go on walks, and there's this little tiny pond, and we actually accidentally always scared this bird away. I always felt bad. I'm like, this bird's just trying to hunt the goldfish that the students put in the pond, and we keep spooking them on accident. So I was like, Lord, let us see this this great blue heron just smash a fish. And then we go for a walk, and then we see just the sun setting. The light is right on this bird, and he, bam, pops this huge goldfish, like this big, slides it down its gullet. And I was like, that's amazing. That's sick. Some of you guys are like, oh, good. God's an animal abuser. Whatever, dude. The blue heron doesn't have to eat. But things like that happen to me every single day, where I'm praying, talking to the Lord, and he answers my prayers, or doesn't answer my prayers, or gives me insight, or brings up a situation where he's confirming, him and my relationship. So I definitely go more on the personal route. I know that's not very convincing for a lot of people, but whatever, like that's the reason why I believe, because I think I know God as a person. Is God a person or three persons, right? Like that's another fun one. I think we'll get into Trinity stuff. But furthermore, part 2 to that, most convincing argument for me. Teleological arguments are pretty good. I am looking for a transcendental argument for God. I love that still. I may give up some of my preceptor ways, but I will always be looking for a transcendental argument for God. I think that the argument from reason, though it's more an argument against physicalism probably is a really good argument for God. I think just for me, like I think it does lead to substance dualism. I think that substance dualism makes sense if God exists, right? So I think the argument from reason retooled, and I'm not saying someone has retooled it enough to be a positive argument for God or not, but I think that also is in the same realm as a transcendental argument. So the argument from reason is awesome. I'm working on a argument myself from Donald Davidson's triangulation argument. I presented it at the Society of Christian Philosophers in Palm Beach in the winter, and I'll be presenting it in November at the Evangelical Philosophical Society. Whether that works or not is there's a lot of conditionals. If Davidson's argument is right, if intentionality is a relation between two relata, like all these things are highly contested. So yeah, I don't know, but it's a fun one, and I'm still working on it. So we'll see. How about interviewing Rupert Sheldrake? I don't know who that is, so my bad. I'm showing my ignorance here. Something I've changed my mind on is interviewing and conversation. Like I really hated when people would say you're an interviewer because I'm like, dude, I'm trying to be a conversationalist. I'm trying to be someone who can participate. I don't want anyone can just interview. Anyone can just read a list of questions to somebody. I want to be someone who's a deep thinker. I don't care anymore. Whatever. Like I'm an interviewer, I guess. So yeah, I would consider maybe. I don't actually know who that is, so I don't know if I would consider it or not. But send me some stuff by Rupert, and like maybe this is a really famous person I'm really showing. I just don't know my stuff here. Someone put it in the chat or comment so I can find it later when this chat's gone. Because yeah, if you think it's someone worthwhile, then maybe I should look into it. What's the strongest argument against God, and how do you refute it? I know everyone says the problem of evil. I don't know, man. Like, what's the strongest argument against God? Maybe like the disunity of the church or something. Maybe like, God said that we're all going to be one and we're not really one. There's so many Christians like hate each other sometimes too. So I think that more than like the problem of evil type stuff. I think you can answer the problem of evil in a lot of different ways sufficiently for yourself as a theist. Maybe not to convince every atheist, but if I were an atheist, I'd push on the unity stuff, especially against Christianity. You guys believe that the church is supposed to be unified, and yet here you're not. Like you're not unified at all. And so then how do I answer that? Well, I'd be like, well, there's the universal church, the unseen church, right? The church invisible, the Catholic Church with a big C. And those people are dispersed throughout all different denominations and such. But yeah, that's a tough one for me. I think that's just this is personally me. Like this is my stuff. That's what I'm thinking. Here we go. Are you going to do any more videos of you talking by yourself about topics? Yeah, I'd like to. I'd love feedback from you guys on this kind of stuff. I wanted to do that more. I started off doing just solo episodes, but then I get some of the world's best theologians and philosophers like on, so it's kind of hard to like talk about it myself when I can just ask them. That's a big part of what I'm doing. And I got a little imposter syndrome too. Like, how dare me? What do I have to say? I am studying a lot of stuff. I will do episodes on stuff that I get published for sure. Conference presentations I'll do because it's like someone else, some other philosopher or theologian thought what I said here was worthwhile enough to talk about it at a conference or publish it in a journal. I got a couple of those things coming down the pike. So yeah, I'll do those. I want to do shorter ones on Philip K. Dick books. Like I want to do that. I don't think enough people read Philip K. Dick. I think that he's got really interesting stuff to say about theology and philosophy. I think he's a really good philosopher, and he does public philosophy in a really, really good way. I think he's like C.S. Lewis if he lost all his hope and took a bunch of LSD. I'd love to do more on Lewis. I'd like to do some stuff on like Bavinck and Van Til. Would I agree and disagree? You pretty much have to agree with everything Bavinck says, but I disagree with some Van Til stuff. Yeah, so I want to do this. I want to do like papers that I think every student of philosophy has to read, or stuff like that to help you guys out more. I've had to read these, so I'm going to help you think about them, or I'd like to do yeah, I wanna do this. It's just a lot of work to do it by myself. It's way harder than just having a conversation with someone. So, hold me to it if you wanna hear, and maybe a lot of you guys just don't care and you just want the interview, right? So I don't know. Do you think Roman Catholicism is a false religion? That this might be something I've changed my mind on a little bit. I used to say yes. I used to be way more hardcore because, like, looking at like a definition of a cult and stuff like that, and I hadn't thought about it that much. I am Protestant and I am like a Calvinist, and I do follow like the Protestant reformers and scholastics pretty hard. And this is a tough one because I have a lot of Catholic friends. I'm gonna like really piss off if I said like the Pope was the Antichrist or the office of the Pope or something. Um, Maybe I could be nice and be like, dude, I think that there's a lot of Catholics that are evangelical Christians, even unbeknownst to them, right? Like that's just true. I just think that's true. I work with a lot of Catholic dudes, and they love the Lord, and they're Christians. Maybe I shouldn't even taken this one. I'm probably getting myself into hot water right now. I think different. Is it a false religion? No, I don't think it's a false religion in the way that I think that like Mormonism is a false religion. Yeah, yeah, I can say that. No problem. Okay, let's jump on another one. God and free will. Yes. Yeah. I think I believe in God, and I do believe in God, and I do believe in free will. So boom. Do you often get turned down by people who don't want to do your show? No, I don't actually. It's kind of like an upward spiral. Once you get this dude on, you can get someone else who can get someone else, and at this point, I've had so many really good philosophers on, so many really good theologians that yeah, I don't get turned down a lot anymore. I still do. I mean, I think I actually got turned down this morning by someone who I've been trying to get on forever. But God's been really good to me on this. Like, and people are really chill. I think one of the good things that happened out of COVID was a lot of older dudes and gals, a lot of like boomers who wouldn't be prone to doing online podcasts and interviews type stuff, who might do in person stuff. Um, they're online now because they had to teach a Zoom class for a year or something like that. So now they totally get how to use this stuff, and it's totally fine for them. So that's at least one good thing that came out of the terribleness. So yeah, I've been super duper fortunate and actually making a lot of really good friends. A lot of these philosophers and theologians I keep up correspondence with, and they look at my papers and they give me feedback, and they're really cool, awesome people, and I'm super shocked and surprised. It's awesome. Not because I thought they would be mean, but just because like they give me the time of day, and they shouldn't. They have others way more important people and things to worry about. Oh man, it just like reloaded. Okay, I found it again. I'm trying to go down the list here. Matt Flummer, dude, I love Matt. What's your favorite podcast, and why is it the Free Will Show? Uh, I love the Free Will Show. It's a really good show. Um, It's not my favorite. I'm sorry, guys. I love you. I think probably my favorite is Lex Friedman's show, even though I don't want it to be, and I'm so jealous of him, and I have to like repent of that often because I'm like, I should be Lex. No, I shouldn't be Lex, dude. Like, stop. I have to work on that all the time. But just if I'm being honest with myself and looking at like how much I watch of a show, it's Lex's show. I always go back to it. I listen to it way more than Rogan. Um, I've learned a ton from his show. So Lex Friedman podcast, if you guys don't know about it, it's really good. And I'm sure he's influenced me a ton. I bet if you listen to my stuff and you listen to his, you might see a lot of overlap. I try not to talk as monotone as Lex, but whatever, dude. He's good. It's just super ironic if you listen to him and you hear him talking about beauty. Oh, look at how beautiful this all is. Like Lex, you could put a little intonation in, dude. Come on, my guy. What is your position on Lordship free grace debate? I used to have really strong opinions on this. So for those who don't know, it's there's like you can just sum this up in like a dictum, like Christ is not your savior until he's your Lord, right? So it's like free grace or cheap grace, like yeah, Jesus is my savior, but he's not the Lord of my life. And people don't say that, but they act that way, right? It's so new. It can get so nuanced. It's all of this stuff. I've learned more and more how tricky everything is. and I don't want to be mealy mouthed. I don't want to not come down on stuff. But there's another dictum that I'll use and say, like, God loves you as you are, but he loves you too much to keep you that way. So, like, if what we mean by the debate is Christ is not your savior until he's your Lord, um, do we mean like, shoot, it's so hard not to get into it and try and parse out different ways. Uh, if we mean like you have to recognize him as your Lord before he's your savior, I don't think that's true. He is your Lord if he is your savior. And this is progressive sanctification. Like you grow in recognizing him as your Lord, even as you grow in your character and being habituated towards holiness, right? And even if I say habituation, some people are really upset by that. But yeah, so I would say no on lordship salvation if that's what we mean by it. Like you have to recognize him as your Lord because you believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and you're saved, man. Like what did the thief on the cross? I don't know actually. Maybe he did say you're my Lord. I don't think so. I think he just said have mercy on me. But the thief on the cross, like that dude was in paradise with Christ that day. So he's always a great example to go back to and be like, well, what did he believe? So I don't know. Maybe that is mealy mouth, but maybe that's who I am. Shorter version. Nice. Took me up on it. Why does God create people whom he foreknows will go to hell? Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? Why does he do that? Because he's telling a story. He's telling a divine theodrama. I don't think that it's not like he creates them and forces them to do anything. There's a lot of different theodicies you can do here. It's like the problem of hell in philosophy of religion type stuff, or even in theology. Why is there hell, or why would he just not create them? Well, maybe there's subsequent goods that come from them choosing uh, to reject him. Yeah, but if he foreknew it, did they really choose? Yeah, I think they really did choose. I'm a compatibilist. They had their reasons for doing it, and God didn't override the mechanisms by which that they chose not him. They rejected him, and yeah, they had their own reasons for doing so. I also think I like historicism when it comes to free will. So I think that the choices they make sense given their history. But if you go with a theodrama route, again, I don't want to be like flippant here. All this stuff can be so flippant, like, yeah, people in hell. But like if you take that seriously, it's like people were in hell. It's horrible, horrible. Like I don't want to just loosely talk about it. So it's tough. It's tough to not to just give it a quick answer. But why did God create people whom he foreknows will go to hell? Ultimately, God does everything for his own glory and showing showing the cost, the price, the outcome of rejecting God, who is the ultimate good. Like this is what happens when you reject the ultimate good. And is it a fiery plate? Like is hell locked from the inside, as C.S. Lewis said, or is it conscious like torment and he's spitting fire? I don't think he's spitting fire on them. I also don't think God's like not there because I don't think there's anywhere in the creation where God's not, because I think God is immense and fills everything. But like I think his goodness isn't there. It's just what can God be where his goodness isn't, right? So like I think the experience is just God's wrath. I think whether that's his goodness and you hate his goodness so much that you receive it as wrath, right? Ultimately the answer is it glorifies God. How can that be? Now we might go into like some skeptical theism type stuff. How could I imagine that as on this side of creation in my fallen state as a creature with a limited understanding? Like, yeah, maybe that's difficult. I think if I thought about it more, I could give a better answer. I think a more full answer, but it's still going to be just this answer, just in accordion style, just pulling it out more. Let's see. Favorite theory / notion of the atonement. Penal substitution, but I like William N. Craig, his model where he talks about it being a multifaceted gem, and penal substitutionary atonement is the face that like makes the rest shine. So like I think we can use all of them. I think coherently, and so I think it is a perspectivalist kind of answer where it's like let's do them all, but the main one is the penal substitution. Whatever, yeah, people are going to be upset by that. Like it's okay. I'm all right with people being upset by that. How about getting Scott Williams on the Trinity on the podcast? How about that, dude? Yeah, I'm down, Ryan. Like, oh, I hope I didn't dox you. Actually, random theology. I'm down for that. I'm pumped on that. That'd be sweet. Let's see. Do you think closed-mindedness should belong in philosophy? Okay, this is a really good question. This is a really really good question. Some of you will know Paul Maxwell, and Paul was a friend of mine, and it's still the friendship relation is still going from me to him. I hope that he would still think that we're friends. I only mention this because Paul helped me see some stuff, and also because Paul, man, if you're listening, dude, I miss you. I haven't talked with him in forever. Many of you will know that he has renounced his faith, and I just miss that guy, man. I love Paul, but Paul put me on to Kant's little essay, "What is Enlightenment?" And in there, he's kind of going against people who hold to creeds and confessions. And he's like, think for yourself. That's what enlightenment is. And I think more Christian philosophers and theistic philosophers in general should address this. I don't know that it's like the most difficult thing in the world. I just think it's a really important, interesting question. Like, does philosophy commit us to having this open mind? And I don't mean open mind. I mean open mind and like everything's on the table to be questioned. That intuitively seems like the project of philosophy. Like, let's get down to ultimate reality. And if you hold to a creed or confession or a particular religion where some things are off the table, isn't that a problem for philosophy? So if you're a theistic philosopher, isn't it a problem that you have unquestionable suppositions or axioms or items of belief, or however you want to say that? And not necessarily, I'm not saying it like it has to be at all. That's fine. Just address it more, because I think it's a really good question, and I think it will help preempt some stuff. Like, can you be a Christian philosopher, or is that a contradiction in terms? And it's not, but it's fun to think through. And I'm still thinking on that because I'm a devout Christian. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to doubt the existence of God. Like I said earlier, like I think I know him like I know my father. Not in the exact same way, but in an analogous way. And some of you don't like analogy, but analogy is awesome. So that I know him truly and literally, but not in a univocal sense to the way that I do know my father, but in an analogical way. So I don't think that I'm going to like doubt God's existence. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I've read a lot of arguments against God's existence, and it's like reading an argument against my father's existence. Like I'll go along for the ride, but I don't think it's going to move me. But is that a problem for like, am I closed-minded now? Can I be a philosopher if I'm closed-minded on something like that? And is that closed-minded? Maybe I'm just really confident in that, and maybe that's okay too. Maybe like the weight of evidence would have to be so strong to get me to move on that position. And that's what I mean. And maybe I'm not actually close-minded on it. So I just think that's a great question. And I'm not like, it depends on what we mean by closed-mindedness. And maybe I need to be more permissive in thinking that maybe it's okay to be closed-minded on stuff. Maybe that's totally fine. I'm just not going to consider this in my philosophy. I kind of like it's kind of interesting to do that, like, because intuitively you'd say no, absolutely not. But it's like, all right, make the argument. Yeah, because you'd have to say no, that's against the project of philosophy. And now you have to define the project of philosophy as if there's one definition. And you get all into tricky stuff about what does it mean to do philosophy? Who gets to count? If you weren't a Calvinist, what would you be? I'd be, I don't know. I might be a Molinist. I might go in for some Molinism because at least they have a stronger notion of meticulous providence. And I think I'm persuaded that Scripture gives a strong view of meticulous providence. So yeah, probably Molinism. I like some of. I used to think Arminians were like super squishball, but I've met some really tough-minded libertarians and a lot of Arminians. I don't want to conflate terms here. Really, really, really tough-minded Arminians, and a lot that would just eat my lunch on a lot of stuff. Philosophically, man, exegetically, some of these dudes are just so tough. They know their stuff so well. So if I wasn't, I don't know. Yeah, lots of different stuff that I would be. I don't think I'd be an open theist. I have some really, really tough open theist friends as well, but I don't think I would go that route. But who knows? Because we're doing counterfactuals here. I think if not Calvinist, then Molinist, and then down the line, and open theism is over on the end of the spectrum. Gordon Clark episode coming from Random Theology. Yeah, I need to get back into his stuff. I like Gordon Clark a lot. Gordon Clark, for those who don't know, was a philosopher, and I would categorize him as like a classical philosopher, and that's fine. That's not like a put down or anything. He was an expert in ancient philosophy, which is awesome, and he's got a great book from Thales to Dewey, which is like a history of philosophy. And he was a presuppositionalist, but not in the Van Tillian school. And this is what I just like. I like people disagreeing on this kind of stuff. I like the old school epistemology debates between him and Van Til, and you bring Schaeffer in. And I really love Carl F.H. Henry, who was one of Gordon Clark's students. And, I believe they're pretty close friends. They have a lot of letters between each other. So yeah, maybe. I just don't know if anyone would listen. It's weird with the episodes. I want to talk about what I want to talk about, but I also want to I want you people to like it. I want you to enjoy it. Like, you're my audience, people who are listening right now. So I want you to watch the stuff and enjoy it. And I get sad when a guest comes on, gives me their time, and then not a lot of people watch the episode, because I'm like, dude, the whole thing is to expose your ideas to a broader audience, and here I am like failing you. I feel bad about that. So I don't know if people would watch the Gordon Clark one, but I'm open for it, because I think it'd be really fun to talk about Gordon Clark and just bring his name back up into the modern conversation. So yeah, I want to do that. That'd be great. Why should we prefer theism over a model like Appi's with a necessary being that isn't God? Because I think I think it has more. Well, I think it's true. I think there is a necessary being. I think he is God. So that's why, because I think it is true ultimately, right? Like, you shouldn't believe something that you don't think is true. Probably, I'm sure there's an epistemologist right now coming up with a counterexample to that. I think that a necessary being who is God has more explanatory power for like our minds, for logical laws. The existence, like law of non-contradiction. Like, I love the more abstract type of arguments for God's existence. I think there's a lot of propositions that are necessarily existent, and I think those make sense if the necessary being is a personal being, and not a non-personal necessary thing. But Appi's scary smart, and I bet he'd eat my lunch if you were here right now. So I don't want to be overconfident in that. I'm just like, I believe in God, so of course I'm going to say that, and I do think it has more explanatory power because it explains more things than a non-personal necessary being. Wow, there are a lot. I don't know if I'm going to do all these, but I will try, you guys. Let me go to some more that I screenshotted from earlier. Let's see. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I think it's 3, because the owl always bites it afterwards. John Smith or Dan Gable. So a lot of you folks are philosophy folks and don't know about wrestling stuff, but these are 2 of the best wrestlers of all time. And I'm going to go with Dan Gable, because I knew about Dan Gable when I was a kid, and I didn't know John Smith until I was already a man. And by then, anyways, Dan Gable's like a legend, dude. His quote is always on people's wrestling room walls. Once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. And I've gone back and forth on that dictum. Like, that's true. If you get a wrestling mentality of like, do it anyways. I don't want to get up in the morning. So what? Who cares? Get up. What are you talking about? Do it anyways. I feel like my arm's gonna break if I try to keep going after this takedown. So then let your arm break. So what? Who cares? Get the takedown. That mentality makes life easier. Just powering through stuff is awesome. But there's a lot of really tough stuff in wrestling, like trauma and death. Like, those things aren't that easy just because you wrestled. But if you have the wrestling mentality, maybe some of that stuff's easier. But maybe if you bring that wrestling mentality to like trauma stuff where you should be talking about, and you just cram it down and you're like, no, I'm just gonna power through, then maybe you just make everything worse. So maybe life is hard. So whatever. That wasn't really the question, but I love Dan Gable. What are your favorite philosophy podcasts? I would say Lex Friedman's is a philosophy podcast, probably. He it is. And that's probably my favorite. But I do love the Free Will Show. And man, I've been listening to Capturing Christianity forever. I love that. And Jordan's Analytic Christian is really good, really helpful stuff. London Lyceum is theology. Sorry, Jordan, it is. But it's so good. And it's analytic theology, and it's amazing. So I'm gonna throw that one in there too. I might be like missing someone, and it might be really upsetting them. I'm trying to think, like, who do I listen to most? I actually listen to my own a lot. Last year I was on my own Spotify top 5. But that's because these are the questions that I have, and so I listen back to hear my guests answers again. And a lot of times it helps me think through like papers that I'm writing and stuff. So I guess I'm one of my own favorite philosophy podcasts. I like Philosophize This. I used to listen to that way more than I do now. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but Philosophize This was a really, really good one that got me through some stuff. Yeah, podcast. I mean, The Majesty of Reason, is it a podcast? It's a YouTube channel, and he calls it that. But like, Joe is stupid smart. He's really, really, really sharp, and he's helped me think through a lot of stuff just listening to his YouTube episodes. So that's another big one. Then there's like Philosophy Overdose and those kind of like YouTube channels that are really helpful. There's probably way more. I'd have to. Maybe I should have checked my Spotify to see what I think of that. Mike Gone, my friend, I love Mike. He says, "What must we do to be saved?" And that's easy, man. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you'll be saved. Easiest one I got. How do you prepare for the interviews? How you prepare for the interviews is something that is of great interest for me. Yeah. I think people think that I just like free flow on these. I do and I don't. I can't really talk with someone unless I've read some of their stuff, because I want to be on the inside track with them. I want to be on the inside with them. I want to like unleash them. And I don't feel like I can do that unless I have a sense of their work. So I always try to read at least a paper by them. Sometimes I read an entire book. A lot of times I read an entire book of them, or 3 or 4 or 5 different articles, and I make an outline, and oftentimes I'll send that outline to them. Sometimes I don't, because I'm doing it, a couple hours before the podcast. But it's always nice for them to see what the kind of stuff I'm going to ask. And then I feel bad because I do ask just random questions when they pop up, and I didn't tell them I was going to do that. And everyone's been so cool about that, because it's like an office hours. I always tell people that my podcast is like an office hours. I read your book, I read your article, whatever. I got some questions for you. Let's go in deep and help me connect with other stuff, because it's really, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to be a philosopher. I'm trying to be a theologian, and you guys all get to watch my journey. Hopefully I'm making some progress along the way. Maybe not. Hopefully I am. So that's really the goal. And I'm always so grateful and impressed that my guests can just think on their feet like this. Like, they're awesome. They're really cool people. So that's how I prepare. And then also I have, if you guys don't know, I have like a saddleback. I used to have a saddleback leather obsession when I was just making my frog podcast, or my frog YouTube channel. I was making bank from one video that went viral. It's got like 38 million views or something. I bought a bunch of leather crap, but I have this saddleback journal, and I take notes like while we're going. So if you're friends with me on Facebook, I post them on Facebook sometimes, so you can see my chicken scratch. So that's another part of it. So like I have an outline that I'm looking at. I'm not reading from. It's more like just to help me remember what I wanted to talk with them about. Sometimes I don't look at it at all, but most times I'll just see like, oh, there's a question I wanted to ask them, and then I'll write down stuff to try and keep track and write myself like reminders and notes and all sorts of stuff to bring it back to my consciousness. I don't know if that's access consciousness or not, but yes. Cool. Let's keep going. Okay, what's a topic you haven't talked about on the channel that you want to? Oh man, I've talked about a lot, and I've got a lot of really good guests on. What's a topic? What's a topic that I'd want to talk about? Probably some more logic stuff. Probably some more inconsistent, paraconsistent type stuff. I think that's fun, but I have talked about that before. Um, yeah, maybe some of like the post-Kantian German philosophers and like British idealism. I like the British idealist guys. I think they're really fun. I haven't really come across like a scholar of British idealism. I have their books, I guess, so I need to look at those again and invite them to come on the podcast. But I think that's cool because, like, if you guys don't know, idealism was huge at the turn of the century, like unreal how many people were idealists. Why? Why is that? Like, there's this whole thing with appearance and reality, and like Bradley and people, like they were huge. Why was that the case? I want to find that out more. I want to get in on their arguments and see like, are they so easily refuted? And was Kant's transcendental refutation of idealism any good? I like the British folks more than like the absolute idealists of in the Hegelian persuasion. No Hegel for me, but that maybe some Hegel for me. I guess I'd have a Hegel whatever scholar on. There's some. I know there's some that I'm just drawing a blank on that I have written down that I want to follow up with people on, or I have been. I'm trying to look at all my different books and stuff and see. Animal ethics and animal thoughts. I would love to just do a full episode on whether we think animals have self-conscious or self-consciousness or like self-awareness. What do we think about this? And maybe even getting into the cognitive science of that stuff. I don't like cognitive scientists, and I'm like biased towards them because I'm trying to be a philosopher of mind, and I've inherited some kind of random beef from them. So I'd love to have a CS person on and squash my beef. Like once I meet someone or see them, like I usually always become friends with them. So that would be good for my soul to not have any biases against a particular discipline. That's so weird. So yeah, that would be another good one. Maybe cognitive science, but cognitive science of animals, or the philosophy of animal thoughts would be pretty sick. I'd love to do a whole show on that. Believing that what you see as cause and effect is something that your prayer caused God to do is the same as conjunction fallacy. All right, I'm sick. Thanks. Here we go. Sup, bro? What confessions do you hold to, if any? Are you reformed? What is your eschatological worldview? Joe's cool, man. I like Joe. This guy's awesome. Maybe closest would be like 1689. I'm in the evangelical free church, so like I'm not as hardcore Baptisty type stuff for membership in a church. Like I think that if you are holding to infant baptism in like a Presbyterian vein, like I think we can still be church members together. That's fine. So whatever, maybe I'm squishballing that, but I'm not like hardcore Baptist on that. But and also I've studied a lot of D.A. Carson and with D.A. Carson, and I think he's kind of secretly New Covenant theology type dude. But he's kind of implanted a lot of that in my head about the discontinuity between covenants. So like I'm not a hardcore covenanter. I think there's just a little bit more discontinuity between the covenants. I'm probably lean way more on like New Covenant theology, even though I think there's problems with that too. So that's why it's like I don't fully hold to any confession. But if I were, the closest would be 1689, maybe 1641. 41 is that the Baptist one, the first London Baptist? I don't remember it a ton, so that's why I'm like hesitant to say, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I need to be more. Maybe I need to read up more. I love the Westminster. I think it's awesome. I just can't fully sign on to any of them. Let's see. Okay, have you gotten into any Van Til or Bonson? Your thoughts? Another one from Joe. Yeah, man, I spent 3-4 years reading Van Til and Bonson and Frame and Oliphant and everyone, like even like the more obscure ones and like the real self-publishy type stuff too. And I like them. I've just loosened up on a lot, like definitely more Framian and epistemology is really tough. So like when it comes to the epistemology stuff, I'm just like, I need to just study more epistemology before I make any commitments to like different schools, So I'm kind of resisting like, here's what I am, here's the name. And I know that sounds like non-committal. It is. And mealy mouth, maybe it is, but I also like, why do I need to inherit this target from people? I'm a Van Tillian. So now like I have to defend the honor of Van Til and think that other people who are not Van Tillians are less pious. Like I hate that. I really genuinely hate that. It sucks. And I don't want to have to get sucked into defending a dude. I will defend people, right? Like I want to defend my teachers. I've learned from people. I want to honor them. I want to make their views more plausible, even if I disagree with them, that kind of stuff. But I don't like the camp stuff. I'm really starting to resent and resist saying, here's what I am and planting my flag in the ground. I'm a Christian. I'm an evangelical Christian. I'm a Calvinist probably. So there you go. You're planting your flag. Not probably, like it depends. I just say probably because some people are like, are you reformed? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Because like in a certain sense, Jacob Arminius was way more reformed than I am because he held to like way more reformed doctrines than I do. But I'm a 5-point Calvinist. So what do you mean by that? And even more than like 5 points. Like I lean towards maybe thinking Calvin's view of the Eucharist, and he wouldn't. I guess maybe the elements, or I don't know if he would say the Eucharist. Probably not, because it's too papist or something. So yeah, I've read a ton of Van Til. I love it. I love Van Til. I'm trying to make his stuff work in philosophy, and if I can't, then I can't, and whatever. But I want to see if I can. Let's see. Man, there's some good ones. I wish I could like flag it and come back. Maybe I can. Okay, let's see. Here's a good one. Hey, bro, how long did the stash take to grow? So this is it. This is like maxed out. I don't think it's ever going to get any longer or bigger than this, which is kind of sad because sometimes I see people with like huge mustaches. This is maxed out. This is my whole marriage. I shaved it for my wedding, and that's it. But I have trimmed it in the past, and when I study and think hard, and when I write papers, I pull them out on accident, like often. So I think it could be a little bit longer if I didn't like nervously fidget. But yeah, this is it. So to get full length though, it takes like 6 or 7 months for me. I'm just a slow hair grower, I guess. But yeah, and I've had it for a long time. I probably will never shave it. Yeah. Friction. What's up, dude? Imagine still believing in abstract objects. Can't relate. Well, all right. That's okay. I love abstract objects. I think they do some good work for us. I think nominalism's cray, like real cray. But that's okay, because again, there's some like Kenny Boyce would come on and just eat me up. So yeah, everything's crazy, and people will eat all my lunch on everything. I'm working. I want to be a really good philosopher. I pray about this almost every day. I every day I pray for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I ask God to open my mind to make me a world-class philosopher, philosopher of religion and theologian. I pray for clear, cogent reasoning and sound arguments, and like I pray for that, and I think God's been blessing me. I don't know if that's tooting my own horn or whatever, but and I have to do the hard work of like reading some logic and getting in deep, and I'm doing that this summer, and I'm hoping to grow, man. I want to be a good philosopher. but the more I grow and the more I see, it's like it's just tough, and people are so good at making arguments, and that's what I love. I love when I'm, like, holding a position and someone comes through and just slashes it to, like, smithereens, and you're like, "What am I gonna do now?" I love it. It's amazing. So, yes. Do you think Plantinga is the funniest philosopher, and why? I don't know. I don't know much about Sidney Morgenbesser, but there's this story about him. He's a Jewish dude, but, so I make that I reference that because people say he's got this, like, really good Jewish witticism. There's this, apparent like, there's a story, I don't know if it's true or not, but, there's a story that Sidney Morgenbesser was, like, critiquing or let's just say critiquing J.L. Austin's theory of words and, speech acts and all that good stuff. And, he was saying, "Look, you can make a negative from two positives." And J.L. Austin's like, "No, you can't. Get out of here." And so then Morgan Besser, I guess they sat down or something. Maybe I'm pushing the story, but they sat down and Austin writes on the blackboard like all the proof for why you can't get a negative from two positives or affirmatives, whatever, however the story goes. And then at the end, Sidney Morgenbesser just goes, "Yeah, yeah." It's like just amazing. So good. Like there's a negative from two positives. So I don't know. There's a lot of funny philosophers. Someone who's planning is really funny. I love planning. Someone who's probably more funny is Ronald Nash. If you can hear his lectures on the Reformed Theological Seminary app in under like legacy courses or something like that. But he's a funny guy, and I love the way he teaches. He like embodies the argument or Kant or whoever, the person or the argument in class. A lot of funny philosophers out there. And that's why the analytics are losing on social media. They're not as funny, man. They explain the joke. Like we need more funny philosophers. We need to bring back idioms and gnomic statements, and like analytic philosophers need to incorporate that stuff more. Make jokes with, the existential quantifier. Do it. Do it. Like let's be funny again. Yeah. I think these are super chats, but I have never got a super chat before. So let's see. Oh, is that? No, did I highlight that? Okay. There's a super chat, right? Yes. I only want to thank you. This is awesome, dude. All right. First super chat. Love that. Millions and millions more. Next time, next live stream is from my new mansion. I'm pumped about it, but I don't mean that in a demeaning way. That's so, Adrian, you're the man. Thanks so much. I'm just saying, like, that's the first one I ever got. That's huge. It would be really cool to do this full time. And that's the start. That was like the start of the full time mission. Okay, what are your thoughts on the gifts of the Spirit? This is fun because there are some philosophers listening, and there are some theologians listening. Like my audience is pretty broad, so some of you guys are like, what is going on here? Get back to the philosophy. And some of the theologians are like, cool, let's do this. So, what are your thoughts on the gifts of the Spirit? I'm not a cessationist, but I'm also not like a loon bag. I, dude, I don't know about tongues at all. Like, I'm not convinced. But like, I think that God gives people dreams still. And I don't want to like limit God, but I understand the cessationist arguments that like the gifts were for establishing the church in the first century. That's fine. That makes a lot of sense. And that would really help for like, why don't we see miraculous gifts? But maybe we just don't see them in the West. Like, or maybe we do see them in the West, but we're too we're too uh we're too naturalistic in our thinking to acknowledge them or something. I think that they continue, but I'm very cautious on it, and I don't really think speaking in tongues means nonsense, or that's probably not fair, or angelic tongues. I think in context there, I think it meant, well, no, Paul does talk about tongues of angels, so I'm just cautious, continuationist and cautious. I'll leave it at that. Have you read much of Thomas Aquinas? If so, thoughts? Yeah, I've read a good deal of Thomas at TED's. McCall had us read a lot of Thomas, I believe, and we read a lot of Turton for him too. Did we read a lot of Thomas? Maybe I did it independently, but yeah, I like it. I like the method. I think that he asks and answers really cool questions. Like some people give him crap about that, and they're like, "Look at the things that they were talking about back then." Awesome. I speculate away. Let's do this. He goes in on some like Roman Catholic doctrine that I don't hold to, but I'm not Roman Catholic, so like that makes sense. I think he's a stupid smart guy. I think he's really, really, really sharp, and I like his method. Yeah, I like. I disagree with a lot of Thomas. Whatever. Okay. It's so hard to say I disagree with people for me now because I know so many smart people. It's really tough. Like I have 180 something episodes, all with people way smarter than me. So it's so tough to be like, here's what I believe. Because like, oh yeah, but I think about this dude and he's whatever. You got to come down sometime. You got to believe something, I guess. Here's one from Jordan. Which of my videos has changed your mind? Let me think. You know, I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer to that, except, dude, I'm really bad with names. Who? Randall Rouser, I think. Randall Rouser goes in on like Christians stop. I think that's the name. Christians stop defending genocide. When Rouser was talking about like the trauma that would happen from God commanding, um, like the Jews to wipe people out, that was really fascinating for me to be like, oh wow, that is really tough. That's tough to think through. At the end of the day, I'm like whatever, because I am hardcore. I am like a wrestler, and I've my whole life been dreaming of being one of David's mighty men and just shredding through people. Like, no, that's kind of dark, dude. Yeah, it is kind of dark, and I'm working on that. But the trauma piece was something that gave me pause, and that I think about all the time when I'm driving. It just pops up, and I'm like, oh, the trauma thing's interesting. And it's hot. It's hot right now to talk about trauma. This is something my friend Paul Maxwell got ahead of the game on talking about religious trauma and the trauma of doctrine. And so he really put me onto that too. So my mind's just been, the pump's been primed to think about trauma. So that's a good one. But I mostly brought this up just because Jordan's the man, and everyone should go subscribe to his channel as well. We talk about this a lot, Jordan and I, but like our videos complement each other because Jordan does like the strict interview, and he does a really good job of making. I bet his notes are amazing of making like a structured outline. Here's what you said, or here's the argument. Here's premise one, and mine's just like mine is more free flow, but it's a office hours conversation. So if you find episodes where Jordan and I overlap with a thinker on the same topic, like listen to both. I'd probably say listen to his first. What's really cool in studying anywhere is you hear the professor say something, and then you go and you talk with the students later, and you like, no, I don't think he said that. Oh yeah, he said that. Here's what he really meant. Talking about it really helps you learn stuff. So I would say like Jordan's is like the lecture, and mine's like the conversation afterwards. So together, like you will learn some stuff. I think. Yeah. So they complement each other. It's awesome. Let's see. My puppy's running upstairs, and I hope he's not going to pee on my stairs. Oh well. Um, sorry, Spartan Theology. Thoughts on Karl Barth? I don't like Barth. I really don't like Barth. The stuff that I think he gets right is better in Van Til, probably. And if you're a Barthian listening, you're gonna hate that. But I'm not a Barth guy. I just don't like Barth. I don't get why he's so famous. Like homie had like a live-in mistress for years. Like that's just sours him for me too. But even his view on salvation is weird, and revelation is weird, and it's just frustrating because I did study at TEDS, and a lot of people were like, Barth is my guy. I'm a Barthian concerning salvation, and just always talking about Barth. And I grew up in Van Til school and in Clark school, and they hate Barth. So like I inherited a lot of that as well in reading him. Maybe I should read more of them. Maybe I should read more of them. I'll leave it there. Okay. Just joined. Apologies if this has been asked, but why did you give up theology for philosophy? Dude, that's a great question. I didn't give it up. I still do theology. I have a paper due this month, at the end of this month, for a theology journal. And that'll be my first publication outside of like book reviews. So like I'm still doing theology. I have another paper I'm working on with a friend who I'm sorry, he's probably listening. Dude, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I have all the notes. I just need to like write it up. It'll be good. But we're doing a paper together and it's going to be epic. It's really going to be epic. So yeah, I didn't give it up. I just didn't want to go to a theology PhD right after. I think I could have. I have really good grades in theology. I have really good references in theology. Like that's awesome. I've always wanted to be a philosopher. I was always doing theology as a philosopher. I want to be able to call myself a philosopher. Maybe that's vain, but I like labels. I really like being able to say this is, oh wow, this might be a contradiction. I just said I don't like camps. Okay. I like categories. I like knowing where I'm going, right? So maybe that's not a contradiction. I don't have to be in a camp to call myself a philosopher. Even in that camp, right? Like you could be analytic or continental. I want to know all of the philosophy. I just want to be a philosopher generally construed, like they say about Mike Humor, I guess. I didn't give it up. I put it down for a second, maybe. Maybe I put it down. I'm still doing work in theology. And I'm working on a master's in philosophy of religion. Some of my hardcore philosopher friends be like, that's still theology. But it's not, and they know that. I want to go do a PhD in philosophy after this, and then I want to do a PhD in theology. So I want to be around for a while. If I can get them for free, I'll study the rest of my life. After that, I'll go do some degrees in herpetology. Like if you'll let me do it for free, I will keep learning. So, boom. This is true. Jordan's right. Of course, you didn't have an answer. You already believe all the right things. That's so true. Let's see. Dude, this is what I mean. His view on election, I don't like that view. That's the view I don't like. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on that, man. That's okay. If I don't know if I'm gonna upload this audio. If I do, it'll be really weird for everyone. So no, I'll probably leave it on Facebook because none of this will make any sense. Okay, this is good. Follow-up question: do you think that compatibilism entails that God doesn't love all persons? Considering he could decree everyone to freely accept him and chooses not to. With ETC, isn't this wild? Eternal conscious. ETC. What's ETC? I'm drawing a blank on that. So my former professor, Dr. D.A. Carson, has an awesome book on the difficult doctrine called The Difficult Doctrine of the Love of God. And he says, contrary to C.S. Lewis, there's more than 4 loves. There's actually 5 loves in Greek, in Koine Greek. And there's not, just because there's 4 words doesn't mean there's only 4 concepts. So the 4 words are used interchangeably to establish like 5 concepts of love, such that God does love everyone, but not in this yearning salvific, I think is the language that D.A. Carson uses for the elect. So yeah, God loves everyone, but not in a yearning salvific way. And I understand why people are like, that's not real love then. Like, okay, that's fine. You can argue against that. You don't have to hold that, but I don't think it's like super incoherent. And maybe you do. Maybe you think that's the case and you can argue against it. That's cool. But that's a really good book, super short. And I think if you have the handbook, new dictionary of biblical theology, it's somewhere around here. Yeah, new dictionary of biblical theology. He's got a piece in that too. So if you have that book, you already have the whole difficult doctrine of the love of God. So check that out. I mentioned it and even showed it in the episode with G.K. Beale. So if that's so rambly and incoherent, just check my episode with G.K. Beale and you can find that book. Okay, another one from Jordan. He's the man. What's the best article / essay you've read on religious disagreement? I want to look into this more. Anything by Feldman, Richard Feldman. I think, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong on this. Feldman and Kelly. I think Kelly also is one of the OG founders, but Feldman, until recently, I thought he started this whole thing, and I still kind of think he did. But he's got some really good essays, and they should probably be public domain by now. But there is some new work. There's a new book. What's the book called? Like religious. It's Matthew Benton. He's like one of the editors, and he was on my podcast. That book just came out. Religious disagreement. Shoot, man. It's really good. Look up Matthew Benton and Religious Disagreement. It's a brown book, and that one's awesome. It has a lot of my podcast guests on too, which is really, really cool. They're all in there. That's a really good book. But check out Feldman's stuff. Like, is religious disagreement possible? Possibility of religious disagreement? I'm sorry, I forgot the name of Feldman's stuff, but I love Feldman. So check out his stuff on that. I also have a couple episodes on disagreement. So I would watch those just to hear the references to the books and papers and stuff. So that could be good. Oh yeah, Eternal Conscious Torment. But I thought that maybe was it ECT, because then I did get it right. Sweet. Spartan Theology giving me some heat here. Oh, there we go. Cool. Got it. Okay, this is false. Don't listen to this guy. Is skeptical theism a good response to the problem of evil or divine hiddenness? I say yes. I think it is. Some people hate this. Some people are not about skeptical theism. For those who don't know, skeptical theism, I'm mostly influenced probably by William Alston's take on this. But planning is another big one. And what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on the other dude's name from Calvin College. I love this guy, which sucks that I can't think of his name right now because he's awesome and super underrated. I'll think of it, hopefully. But yeah, I think it's good. And I think it's good when you tie it with the authorial analogy, that God is the author and we're living in his theodrama or in his story. Like, we are situated narratively, and he's the author. He can see the full story. He can see what needs to happen in order to develop your character. So he sees the greater goods. He sees the consequent goods, the antecedent goods. He is in a position to make those calls, and I'm not. I don't know about whether so that as a defense to show that your worldview is internally consistent, even with the existence of evil. I think it works really well. I don't know about externally. Should that be a really convincing argument for a non-theist who's like, no, I think the problem of evil is bad, the evidential problem of evil? I think they still have this evidence against theism. So I'm still wrestling through that kind of stuff. It's been tricky. I've been trying to get into. I'm trying to be like a philosopher of mind, right? So I have a lot of mind stuff to read, and I want to read everything, and so it's hard to stay sharp on a lot of this stuff, which sucks. I hate memory. I wish I had it just down. But yeah, I do think it's good, and I use it in my master's thesis and in a forthcoming paper in theology. So yeah, look for that. Hopefully I can finish that paper and it will get published. Yeah. Are there any philosophy of religion debates that you've watched and would recommend? William Lane Craig's debates are always good. Whether if you think he's unless you think he's a charlatan. I don't know very many people who think he's a charlatan. I know Philip Goff doesn't like him at all, but his debates are fun. They're really fun to listen to. I really like those. I like the Gordonstein debate with Greg Bonson. I think that's just a fun one because he trapped him in this one view. I think Greg Bonson was a pretty good debater. Some people will totally disagree and say he doesn't even make arguments. He's just a rhetorician or something. Whatever. You can think that. That's fine. But those are some fun ones. Yeah, there's some fun debates. There's some fun debates out there. I haven't watched debates in a long time just because I've been so busy. So yeah, but I like watching Craig's debates. Those are good. Yes, Jordan. It's Weikstra. Yeah. Or Vikstra. I think he says Weikstra though. But yes, that's the man. He is awesome. I love that dude. Just a great guy. And from hearing his students, I'm friends with a lot of his students. They all say he's the man over there. Yeah, at Calvin. I don't think he's there anymore. Maybe he still is. Okay. From Aaron, how do you manage motivation and slash productivity? Any general productivity principles? The book is Deep Work by Cal Newport. Um, Deep Work. It's good. Like there's some really good principles in there, but even just having that concept of like putting everything aside and just focusing on one thing is so good for you, and you get in the zone, and like you can whatever make blocks for your day. Like in this 2-hour block, I'm going to go think, or I'm going to go write, or I'm going to go study. And I don't care if the fire alarm goes off. I don't care, whatever, like come hell or high water, I'm getting this done. That's like that wrestling mentality that I was talking about earlier. Like I don't care. I'm locking the door. No one's coming in. I'm doing like, I guess if there's a real emergency, but it's got to be big, because otherwise, like life will happen to you instead of you happening to your projects and stuff. So there's that. I've got some tips on reading, and maybe I'll make some YouTube videos on that, but I've made some TikToks on it and they've done okay, like okay for me, because I'm a tiny little guy over there. Yeah, I got some decent tips on that. Staying motivated is tough though, because like it comes and goes. I have a lot of different hobbies, and it's tough because I don't want to do them when I don't want to do them, but I need to keep stuff up. So yeah, dude, like I'm a Christian, so praying about it is huge. And I ask the Lord to help me and help me be motivated and help me be conscientious and responsible, but also that I'll like have fun and love to do it. So you can do this a lot of different ways. You can like put yourself in the right mood through music, listening, making a playlist that gets you amped to do something, whatever that is. Even if it's like classical music for studying, and you're just like, freaking Bach is getting me going, dude. Let's go think. Yeah, there's certain things like when I have a bunch of animals, if I want to take care of them and I'm not feeling like I don't want to go change their water, but if I go walk around a marsh or something and see like animals in nature, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that's good. I like that. I need that. So just finding out those things, those activities that get your juices going for whatever particular thing you need to be productive and motivated towards or on, go and do some of those things to help you become that person. I don't know, like Van Hooser's got some cool stuff about this, where it's like you live in a theodrama. So what character are you gonna play? Like what's your role? Go and do that. So like if I'm losing motivation to like lift, I'll watch jujitsu videos, because I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to get beat up in jujitsu, so let me go lift. Or I'll think about like Batman and be like, bro, if I was Batman right now, like I would go lift a bunch of weights and get huge to stop crime. It's like make believe. It's weird, but whatever you gotta do to get your motivation up, do it. Let's see. Your thoughts on metaphysics. Um, that's pretty broad, right? Like it's a huge thing. I'll go with like fundamentality type stuff. I used to be a priority microphysicalist. I used to think that like fundamentally there was like these like tiny little BBs, because that's what we're taught, I think, in school. And they don't say those words, but that's what they teach you. There's like this fundamental atom, right? And then you learn that like, oh, atoms, no, there's protons and neutrons and superstrings and all that kind of, quarks. I used to think that everything was like those are what's most fundamental, but now I've kind of come around to substance priority, that they're like different substances, and like that substances are fundamental. So like I think that my immaterial soul is a substance, and I think that's just as fundamental as a superstring. Yeah, it's tricky, but yes. So now that's something I've kind of changed my mind on. Mm, Okay, here's a good one. Whose game are you trying to emulate currently in the jiu-jitsu scene? I I I do Darce chokes a lot, strangles, right? Like I have really really long arms for my body, and Darces are awesome. So I I I watch everything that John Danaher says about Darce chokes. Who he invented them too. And they're called Darce because of his student Joe D'Arce. No one could say D'Arce, so they just called it Darce. I just want to Darce the world. I want to strangle everyone through a Darce. That's my jam. So like I would say Gordon, but no one can match Gordon. And I don't like playing bottom, so it's not Gordon. But there's some wrestlers that I watch who are just like dominant on top, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just try and do that. I think my bottom game is actually getting pretty good, but I don't want to be there. I want to take people down and just sit on them. Let's see. Maybe did I miss some up top? Okay. What do you think? What do you think about divine hidden, or why do you think divine hiddenness isn't talked about as much as a problem of evil? A few years ago, it was the argument that prevented me to embrace God. It probably depends on who you're talking with. I don't think Calvinists care about this problem at all. I think people are like, Calvinists are like, God's not hidden. You're hiding from God. That's that. And, if you can preach on that, then we got it all good. People probably don't know about it, or they think it's subsumed under the problem of evil. Some people say that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's not talked about as much. There's also like Philip Clayton talks about the problem of divine neglect, and that one's actually really tough too. It's not the same as hiddenness, but it's like, why doesn't God intervene? And could that be a subset of problem of evil as well? Yeah, probably. But I'm following John Feinberg and being like, no, these are all different arguments related, but you got to address them differently. Probably. I kind of don't like that. I would like to have one just silver bullet for everything. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. But a couple years back, like Cameron Bertuzzi on Capturing Christianity, like kind of brought that into the forefront and was like, yeah, this is a big problem and everyone needs to address it more. And I think he actually did a great job of exposing it. And some people might think that's a bad thing. Like Christians shouldn't be sharing arguments against God's existence, but it's like, no, you should. Like, we need to address this and talk about it. And more people thinking about it is a good thing, lest your kids go off to college and get surprised by it. What are you going to just like sweep it under the rug? Like, come on. So, yeah, I think he does a good job of that. So Cameron's the man too. Let me give a shout out to Cameron. Oh no. Okay. I'm currently writing an essay on Wittgenstein. I'm curious about your thoughts as a theologian on Wittgenstein's work. I don't like Wittgenstein. I don't like early or late, however we talk about him, first or second. I don't know, man. I think Wittgenstein's kind of overrated as a philosopher. I don't quite get it. Like I love seeing Timothy Williamson like rail against the Wittgensteinians. I think he's right. I think Bertrand Russell is way better than Wittgenstein, and I don't know why he held him in such high regard. I don't know. Even like the duck rabbit's sick. I might get that tattooed. That's cool. I don't know. Maybe later Wittgenstein is cool, like the blue book type stuff or brown book. I don't know. I don't like when I don't know if this is true or not either. So like I don't like use a use of a word determines its meaning or whatever like that, right? Like, is that an empirical fact that just is true, or do I want to be like a realist about words and their relation to the world? Maybe those two things can go together. I just don't quite get it. I think that he is like more of a continental writer, but for whatever reason, everyone's like he's the analytic guy, and I don't see it. Not like Russell. Like Russell, super duper analytic. Like Frege, like these guys. I don't know. I just think those guys and Wittgenstein. So like, yeah. Sorry if that hurts. Like I'm not a big Wittgensteinian at all. Let's see. Okay, what do you think about R.C. Sproul? I don't know. He's got some really good stuff to say, and he's been encouraging here and there. But I was a Piper guy. I always listened to John Piper instead of R.C. Sproul. And I don't know about Sproul's like philosophy stuff. Like, I think he's a little overrated in that area. But godly dude for sure. Funny guy, like jovial guy. Like that's a guy. We need more people with his kind of jovial attitude. He says some weird stuff from the pulpit about Christ and God damning him and stuff. That's weird, and I only know that because Dr. McCall would always reference that. But he's like the Arminian of Arminians, so he's always like, how could Sproul say that? So, but yeah, he kind of did poison the well a little bit for Sproul for me. I think he's a godly dude, and I think that his personality is awesome. I'm just saying, like, I didn't learn Reformed theology from him. I learned that from Piper, and then Piper put me on to like Owen and like Calvin and all those guys. So yeah, like I went through a long phase of like really resenting a lot of modern pastors, except Heart Cry. What's his name? Paul Washer. I got into Washer like huge, but yeah, people preaching the gospel is a good thing. I think that's good. So yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, Spartan Theology. I'm learning that Parker is a hater in the stream. I don't want to be a hater, man, but maybe I do. I'm a contrarian. So the more like someone's like, this is awesome, I'm like, well, let's see if this is awesome. So maybe that does make me a hater. Sorry everyone if that hurts. Ooh. Okay, another tough one. What are your thoughts on the foundations of mathematics? Are you everything reduces to set theory, or God gave us the integers, everything else is man's invention? Man, this is you. You need to come on and tell me about this. I want logicism to be true. I want that to be true. And then I heard like, oh, logicism's out. But then I heard logicism is back in. And I don't know enough about it. I don't know that like where we're at in the debate. If that can be true, then let it be true. Please, 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 please let mathematics be reduced to logic. Because then we can just throw logic in God's mind and we're all set. I don't know. I'm getting into set theory and stuff. Do I think that sets are real though? Like, I don't know the relation between sets and possible worlds. I don't know that. I haven't looked into that. So I'd like to think about that more. Like, are sets just another way of talking about No, that's not true. That can't be. It can't be that. But are they grounded in possible worlds? I don't know. So I'm going to try and put it in God's mind if I can. Maybe that's the wrong way to do philosophy, but I'm going to try and do that. But I need to think about this more. And actually, I'm really coming around to math. I'm starting to really like it. So that's cool. John Piper is good, and Barth is not a good theologian. That's like the sum. Yeah, we can just stop here, man. That's right. That's so good. Yeah, I know you are. I know. Let's see what else we got. Okay, I missed this one. Do you think infant damnation is an entailment of original guilt and total depravity? If not, why not? Total depravity is just like there's not one aspect of your being that's not affected by sin. So it's like, yeah, your volition is affected, but not your intellect. No, like the whole thing, it's all affected by it. And maybe it's like the wrong word to use because it makes it sound like we're all just chewing each other's ears off and stuff. But man, I don't know how to like consistently say I don't believe in infant damnation. I don't think this is really a hairy thing because if you say all infants go to heaven, then it's like, well, then abortion or infant sacrifice or whatever is like a great evangelical revival because you're sending them all to heaven. But it's like that can be true. They can still go to heaven and it still be a terrible, horrible act, like because if someone murdered and slaughtered me, they're sending me to heaven, but that doesn't mean that the way that I got there was a good thing. So yeah, it's just hard because it's like, well, what about age of accountability stuff? And yeah, I need to get into like value theory and ethics and stuff like that too, and like practical reason. And I hate all that stuff, but I need to do it because I want to go in deeper on this kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think an infant damnation is an entailment of original guilt. Let's see. Do I believe in original guilt? Do we inherit Adam's guilt, or do we just inherit a corrupted nature and we get our own guilt through sinning? Right. That's a tricky one. What did Calvin say about this? I think Calvin and Aquinas and Thomas disagree on inheriting guilt. I think Calvin's like, yes, we do get the guilt. I think Thomas said we don't inherit the guilt, but maybe he did say that because he holds to baptismal regeneration, so it doesn't really matter if you get the guilt as a baby as long as you baptize them. I don't know if we're born with guilt. I don't want to like speak out of turn here. I'm trying to think what I think about this, not just what these other dudes think. But yeah, I think babies go to heaven. I think that's reasonable. I think it's like knowing the character of God. I don't think God's like a stickler. It's like, frick, like, dang it, if only you would have reached the age of accountability. No, I think he's sovereign over all of this. And if he can regenerate, if he exerts meticulous providence and regenerates me, then he can regenerate a dead baby, a baby who dies before that happens. Now, what's that baby's life like? This is weird too, because I do believe in interactionism between soul and brain. So like, I think that would they just be unformed or malformed? Like not malformed, but unformed because they didn't live a life and have experiences, and the interaction between brain and spirit or soul, wasn't like actuated, and they didn't develop further. Are they an infant forever? No, that seems weird too, right? Like it seems super weird. So these are all things that I'd like to think through more. Let's see. I need like music to be playing while I read through these guys. Okay. Let's see. Here's another good one. In skeptical theism, if you say we can't know whether God has good reasons for doing any given action, does this undermine our ability to assess the probability that God would reveal himself in Jesus? If you say we can't know whether God has good reasons for doing any given action, I don't know if that is skeptical theism. I hear that sometimes. I hear Philip Goff talk about skeptical theism like that. I thought, like, in using skeptical theism, you want to look at an instance of evil and say, we don't know why God allowed for this, but we're not in the cognitive position, like we're not in the position epistemologically to assess his reasons for allowing this. We can't know that there's no good reason. So maybe that's like a particular take on skeptical theism, and maybe that wouldn't be planning us, because I've heard it before. I've heard people talk like this, but it doesn't seem like the skeptical theism I know. Skeptical theism I know, a la like Alston, is like, look, there's a bunch of reasons for why we shouldn't expect to know all the reasons that God has for allowing a particular instance of evil. Rather than like, we don't know, we can't know whether God has a good reason for any given action or not. Like, we can't know if he has a reason or not. No, like, I think he has a good reason for everything. We can't know what that reason is, and maybe there's like a billion reasons, right? So like, I wrote a paper for Feinberg on this, and he was not convinced. But I saw this Instagram video way back in like 2018 or something of this goose just killing this tern. A tern is one of those white birds that dives down, looks like a seagull, but it dives into the water and grabs fish. And this goose was just ornery because it was spring, and freaking flapped at him and drowned this tern just because it was near him. And I was like, that looks like an instance of gratuitous evil. But then, like, thinking about it in a skeptical theist frame, like, how do I know whether or not that tern had a bird flu that would have wiped out all the birds in the state or something like that, right? So I don't know that. I don't know if there was a consequent good or a subsequent good that was brought about because of that, or a greater good, or if me reflecting on that was part of it, and how many of those need to come into play in order for it to be a greater good. And does that make me a consequentialist now? And can anything be justified, right? So that all that's tough, but that's what I think of skeptical theism. Not just like we don't know anything about God or his reasons. Also, assessing probabilities are tough when it comes to like revelation, because I think it's a special case. And is that special pleading? Could be, but whatever. Yeah, what are the probabilities that God would send Christ absent revelation? I don't even know how we get this conversation going without revelation. So I'm not sure. I'll let my Bayesians handle that, and I'll bone up on some Bayes stuff, I guess. Sad day for me. Okay. Which philosophical text have you read the most and gone back to? Probably probably Paul Gould's edited volume Beyond the Control of God? Question mark. Beyond the Control of God? I love that book so much. I love it. I love like it helped me think a lot about metaphysics and propositions and like what's the state of those and just thinking about God and like what's true. Is there a Platonic realm or horde? I hate the word horde, but is there a Platonic realm that has always existed alongside of God? And is that a problem? And how do we interpret scripture because of that? Like, Colossians says all things are, created in Christ, like or hold together. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Or John 1, like nothing was created that was not created through Christ. Well, what about the triangle? What about propositions? What about the proposition that nothing is created apart from Christ? Is that an eternal thing alongside of Christ? Or are like those abstracta, like not things properly speaking? Is that like, does the semantic range stretch to include those or not? That stuff gets me going. I love that. So that's one I return to often to think through those implications. Then there's like Pascal's Pensées. Yeah, it's Pensées when it's Pascal, but it's Pensies when it's Parker. His book is amazing. I love that book. I love particularly the Penguin Classics version is so good. And Augustine's Confessions, I know, like, is this a philosophical text? Yeah, it is. It's just not an analytic text. And I return to that one often as well. And then C.S. Lewis's Miracles, I think, is another one where I try to read that once a year. I love that book so much. So there's a couple. Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is true. I know one person we can agree is based Polanyi. Yes, Michael I can't say it. Polanyi is super based. I love that guy. Like the way he thought at the time he thought with his tacit knowledge stuff is epic. Like homie just turns from science, goes right into philosophy and epistemology type stuff. I'm kind of waiting for like an epistemologist who's like, Polanyi sucked. I'm interested to hear that because like everyone I talk with is like, yeah, tacit knowledge, that's good. I'd be interested to hear a hot take on him. But yeah, I love him. Super based. Love that dude. Okay. What are the best books / articles on compatibilism, preferably from intro to advanced? I just did an episode with Joe Schmid last night, actually, on like the books that got us into philosophy and helped us learn philosophy. And I kind of regret like the way I did it. Joe did it so much better than me. Joe's like, here's books that will help you. And I was like, historically, these are the ones that got me into it. And it's like some of them are not very helpful. But we had a lot of overlap too, which is cool. Dirk Pereboom and Michael McKenna co-edited a book. I think is it Free Will? It's Routledge, Contemporary Introduction to Free Will, maybe. Amazing book. Like you have to read this book. Everyone who's listening, go read this book. It's so good. Like disambiguating the classical debate between compatibilism and incompatibilism and how that's different than the modern debate, and source incompatibilism, source compatibilism. Like it's just so good. You got to get that book. Joe said it was like hard and you should read something else before them. Listen to the episode with Joe. I don't know if that's true. I think you can just jump into it. I think they do a good enough job to like easing you in. So read that book and then read Calvinism and the Problem of Evil. Who's that? Daniel something. It's somewhere. It's a good book. That one's really helpful because there's a lot of Calvinist philosophers who are like, let's try and figure this out. How can we explain compatibilism in a way that is historically like rooted in the tradition, but also philosophically rich and fun, like Greg Welty's essay in there. I think that's the one where he's got Molinist gunslingers, and he brings out Bullet Bill from Mario Kart, which is awesome. So I commend both those books. Definitely get those. I think I probably missed some. I'm not trying to like dodge anyone. Maybe I'm trying to dodge some. I have some more. I don't know how long this is going to go. All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, here's one from Justin. one of the guys at Disciple, I love Justin. This dude's so awesome. He said, how does reincarnation play in a Christian's life? And some Christians are like, no, it doesn't. But it's like, well, yeah, we will be reincarnated. We're going to have a glorified body. Like, oh, I guess if you're a Christian physicalist, boo, one. But secondly, like, yeah, maybe you won't be reincarnated, especially if you believe like that hypertime stuff or whatever, where you wake up in glory, like you zoom past a bunch of time. Will you be reincarnated? You'll just be alive in your body, same body. So maybe you won't be reincarnated on particular views of the intermediate state. But if you're a substance dualist, like a good Christian should be, then you will get a new glorified body. So you will be reincarnated in that sense. Not in like the sense that if you did something bad, now you're a grub, but like you will be re-embodied, like infleshed. I thought that was pretty interesting. And a lot of people who listen to this show you guys are all so sharp and so smart. Even like non-theists and non-Christians know a lot about Christian theology, which is really cool. But like most of you guys will know, and gals will know that yeah, we don't just float around playing harps in heaven. Like heaven is a place of waiting. There's going to be new heaven's going to come down and meet new earth. So the new heavens and new earth is what we're looking forward to be re-embodied, to be reincarnated. I know it's weird to say, but re-embodied in our new glorified bodies, absence of corruption and sin and all that stuff. So, man, that's the hope. Like the early church hoped and longed for that to happen, and so do I. Just glorified, freaking huge, jacked body for Parker. That'll be. I can't wait. That's probably not true. I don't know what it's going to be like. But Ballant, I hope I'm saying your name right, Ballant. He says, here's a question. Have any of your theological or philosophical views changed in the past 2 years? It would be interesting to hear which and why. So, again, epistemology is so tough, and I just want to always like give it up for people working in epistemology. You guys are crazy and awesome and way smarter than I will be. But I think I've probably moved from like externalism when it comes to like justification to internalism, probably because of Tyler McNabb. In one episode I was recording with him, I asked him about Neo, and I was like, hey, look, to me, Neo's got a huge problem when he wakes up out of the Matrix because he was just systematically deceived for all of his life, like 30 years, 35 years, however old he was when he woke up out of the Matrix. And now he's just justified in his beliefs or warranted or whatever you want to say because he's in the good case. Like, how does he know that he's in the good case? Oh, it doesn't matter if he knows. He just happens to be in the good case, so therefore he's justified. And that's when I was like, hold on, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, don't you have to know whether you're in the good case or not in order to be justified or like have reasons to believe that? So maybe he did have reasons to believe, but to me, I'm like, dude, Neo is screwed. He woke up out of the Matrix after being deceived forever. I don't even know if his concepts refer. I might be an external, a content externalist in that. Like, I don't know if his concepts refer. Like, he's been working with chairs his whole life, but all my internalist friends are like, no, that's no problem. He's fine. So I don't know. I think that's something I've moved on where I'm like, yeah, I'm probably more of an internalist now, but I'm so dumb. I don't even like why. Well, because of Neo. Is that a good argument? Maybe. It's the one that I'm thinking of. So I'm looking forward to diving in deeper on epistemology and understand like what do I believe and why do I believe it. But I think I've moved from externalism to internalism. And when it comes to like Trinity stuff, like I'm probably still a Trinitarian. I still hold to like some version of Trinitarian Mysterianism, following like James Anderson and Oliver Crisp. But if I had to come down on it between like Latin model of the Trinity and like social model, I definitely would go social model, like, which is wild because I used to think like heresy. And now I'm like, dude, I don't think that persons are relations. Like, I'm just not sure. But still, like, I'm trying to be a Mysterian here. But if you really push me, I think I've definitely moved over to thinking that the social model is more plausible than the Latin model. But yeah, like I want to be historical too, and so I want to be careful on that. That's such a good question about stuff changing. Like, yeah, a lot. I think a lot has changed. Like my belief in finding like a really good transcendental argument is lower. My credence there has changed, but I'm still hopeful. Like I, hopeful. I'm not hopeful. I'm not hopefully expecting. I'm just like fingers crossed, expecting that I'll be able to do one or someone else. So hopefully, man, I would like that. But I think I've definitely changed on that. Like I said, I changed from like priority microphysicalism to priority or substance priority type stuff. Um, I may have even changed to like being open and maybe like wanting, maybe thinking that William Hasker's emergent dualism is like the way to go. It might not be, but I kind of like it a lot. So we'll see if that's like a good theory of mind. I know Brandon Rickabaugh is like, no, here's a bunch of arguments for it or against it. So I got to reread those. Yeah, maybe if I think of some more, I'll bring those up too. Uh, Someone said patiently waiting for the 2-hour plus library tour. Everything is a total mess in here right now. It's not organized like well. But a bunch of you have said you want to see my books because you guys are nerds. But that's cool. I'd want to see I want to see other people's books too. So I'll have to organize it. But then yeah, I'll do a book tour. That'd be fun, just to show like these are the books. It's always funny because like my philosophy friends will be like, "What's all this theology? Ugh." And then my theology people are like, "Look at all the Van Til, yuck." And then like all the theology people are like, "Why so much philosophy, dude? Like, what's your deal?" Like, it's just fun. I swim in a lot of circles and get a lot of crap from all of you, and I love it. It's so much fun. uh, let's see, what else do we got? I'll go back to the chat. Anyone else in the chat still? Let's see. Um. Okay, here's one. When a Christian dives headlong into deep philosophy, is there a danger of not being able to say anything with confidence without a skeptical voice in the back of your head listing objections? Yeah, probably. Maybe I'm a case in point throughout this whole live stream. I can say things with confidence, depending on what you mean by confidence, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm confident that God exists, that I'm made in his image, that I'm a fallen image bearer, that I have been redeemed, that I will be with him in glory, that I'll have a new resurrected body, that I trust in him and love him and know Christ is my personal savior. I'm confident that nothing can separate me from the love of Christ. Confident that God is a triune being, the creator of all. What else am I like? Yeah, dude. I can say stuff with confidence. But there's a lot that I'm not as confident on anymore, and a lot of that's bred like some good intellectual humility. Like I used to be really hard on like Lutherans, for instance, but all the Lutherans I knew were like squishballs. And I went to seminary, and David Louis is Lutheran and is a beast and a godly dude, and like knows scripture super well and knows theology and knows philosophy. And he just like really showed me like, hey, dude, careful what you say. Like this guy will eat your lunch. Like careful, don't be so arrogant against other denominations. So yeah, studying like deep philosophy and theology has loosened me up a lot. Like I'm careful in what I say in my renunciations because I know that I'm in progress. I'm a student. I know some stuff. I've learned some stuff, but like I don't know that much. And even the stuff I do know, like being able to defend it against someone who holds that position is super tough. Like I think it's good. I think it helps me be a better Christian to like watch what I say, to think about what I say before I say it. So I think it's good. And some of the skeptical voice stuff is cool. When I read scripture and I'm like, what would my friend the skeptic think of this? How could I either make this plausible for them or explain it to them in a way that explains how I think of it? Because I obviously think that this is plausible. So how would I express that to him? So I think it's good. But yeah, you get in trouble sometimes when you're like, "Oh, I want to say something, but I can't because I'm caught in all the morass of qualifications. Death by 1,000 cuts or whatever. It can happen, but it doesn't have to. And sometimes, often, I guess, when it does happen, it's a good thing. Okay. Is the Father identical to God and the Son is identical to God? If the Father is identical to God and the Son is identical to God, then does it follow that the Father is identical to the Son? No, I don't think so. And which one do we have to deny? The indiscernibility of identicals? Identical? Um, no, we did. I'm probably not the best to talk about this, but Chris Tweet and I talked about this, and he's got a really good paper on it. So maybe I shouldn't try and repristinate his argument here. Yeah, he's got some good reasons for why that's not the case. You could go in for like absolute counting, probably, or reject absolute counting, probably too. Yeah, now we're getting into philosophy of language type stuff and reference. But I'll just say no. No, I don't. I don't think so. But check out, like, if you want better answers, check out Chris Tweets, because he's been thinking about it for a long time. That paper represents a lot of really good work that he's done. So let me just point you to him. Yeah. So according to Nietzsche, Jesus is the first and last Christian. Your thoughts on that expression of Nietzsche? I don't know. Like, a lot of people say Jesus wasn't a Christian, right? Because he founded it. Like, I don't think Jesus was a Christian. Because a Christian is like, it means little Christ, and maybe that's like the root fallacy, but it's like a follower of Christ, and Christ was not a follower of Christ. A Christian looks to Christ for forgiveness of his sins, and Christ doesn't look to Christ for forgiveness of sins. Like, he's the God man who founded it, or the God the Father and the Spirit founded it through him, but the external operations, right? Like, God is unified in those. So I don't know. I think just initially, like, Jesus isn't a Christian. I think that's totally fine to say. I think that's like makes a ton of sense. I don't know why does Nietzsche say this, I guess, that he's the first and last Christian? Is that because, like, no one else could live up to his standard or something? That, I guess, that makes a little sense or something, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think Jesus was a Christian. Maybe we can just, like, get around this whole thing by saying that. Yeah, I think we're probably slowing down here, which is nice. So this was awesome. This was really fun. I'm sorry if I missed your stuff. It's kind of hard to read a lot of this. There's a lot of, man, a lot of theology stuff. That's cool. Yeah, it was fun. This was good. I think I'll do more of these. Thanks everyone for participating. Thanks for asking questions and being cool. Like, yeah, you guys are awesome. Thanks for watching my stuff. Thanks for liking and commenting and sharing. And a lot of you guys are Patreon patrons. That's huge. I think probably some of you have done super thanks stuff, which is cool. Like, thanks for supporting it, and thanks for, like, following along and listening. I hope that you guys have learned some stuff along the way, because this has been like a huge blessing to me doing this podcast, and I want this channel to get huge because I love my guests. I love their stuff, and it's just kind of upsetting that, like, Jordan Peterson is so big, but Kevin Van Hooser isn't. Like, and he doesn't care, but I care, because I'm like, there's a lot of really good people, a lot of really good scholars and authors and thinkers and philosophers. I just want more of you to hear from them. I have this awesome experience. Let me bring that to the rest of the world. So not only do I want to do this full time, and I need a big audience for that, but, like, I just want to expose my guests' work to a huge audience, like, to know that they're appreciated, to know that their work means stuff, and to know that people are benefiting from all the hard work, even like the really difficult journal articles. Like, let's bring those out and let's get them to you guys, and let's have you struggle with them and wrestle with them, just like the way I do. And I don't fully get them or understand them, but we're growing. Spartan Theology, you're awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks everyone who's been watching this, and everyone who's watching not live. Like, thank you too. Please extend some grace on like where I've been stupid, where I've said dumb stuff. I need grace, and I'll extend that back to you guys as well. 3,000 subscribers. It's awesome. 10,000. Here we come. Here we come. 100,000. Who knows? Maybe 4,000. Here we come. Let's get there first. Awesome. Well, this has been Parker's Pensies, and as always, all glory to God.